The media world is going through a transformation right now.
The strongest brands out there are the ones that are relentlessly relevant.
These brands become categories of one in people's lives.
I think it's really all about reach.
It's a race to find the right talent and bring them in and keep them.
Advertisers want large volumes of data in ways that make sense.
They want to be able to reach that audience as our core demographic. NetSuite allows us to provide that.
For advertising, there's never been a better time.
Media is global, our clients are global. NetSuite supports instant visibility around the world.
NetSuite helps us focus on creativity.
We've hired the smartest people. We wanted to make sure that they had a system to really flourish and get to that next level.
We want to have one source of truth and be able to make decisions.
We focus on transparency. Being able to use NetSuite, I can say, client, we've done all of this for you. Here's the report in like 5 minutes.
We have 81 million unique visitors per month.
80 to 100 individual data sources.
8 offices in 7 countries.
300 million people through social platforms.
NetSuite is dynamic and flexible.
It's allowed us to weather the changes.
It's a comfort to know that we have a standardized system, that we have this visibility.
NetSuite can really kind of mold to our company.
It's so user-friendly. It's really limitless. I haven't found something that I can't do yet.
Oracle NetSuite Global Business Unit, Advertising, Media, and Publishing Director, Chris Herring.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our keynote this morning. Everyone can hear me? Good. Okay. Well, thank you for coming this morning. I know it's the last day of SuiteWorld. Everyone's probably nursing a hangover or nursing an injury. I myself had an unfortunate incident with the treadmill earlier this week. Didn't quite get the off button and have a nasty burn on my leg. But I think we're all a little walking wounded. But I wanted to get into a couple of things today. This is an exciting time for us at NetSuite, exciting time for me being part of the advertising industry vertical. And we're going to get into a number of interesting stories today that'll talk about how we're investing in you as our customer and how we're investing in the industry based on what we've learned from the number of years that we've invested in it. So when I think about advertising and media today, it's a fantastically interesting time. Last night we saw an incredible engagement with our band, the Royal Machines, that came out. And what that was about was an incredible connection to that audience. We were engaged, we were there dancing, we were having a good time. And that was the relevance that they were probably a little more related to our age than maybe the recent bands that came out, but also the idea that they were right in front of us capturing our attention. And our attention is fleeting these days. When you think about Vine video and these other applications that are trying to capture our excitement, our interest, they're having a harder time creating relevant messages for us and keeping that engagement as we move ahead. So when I think about the way we're looking at these next months and these next years with NetSuite, it's about enabling you as our customer to have a better and more resonant message with your consumer. So let's talk about a couple things here. So when we talked about NetSuite in the current environment, we understand that cloud is a given. Cloud is really the starting point for any company looking today to put their business systems behind them and look at how their business strategy can be achieved with different choices that they have to make in a zero-sum world. So let's move ahead to talking about a couple things. Industry expertise, realized value, and us being in this together. And this is all driven towards our Suite Success strategy. I look at today's keynote as being the end of the funnel in terms of our conversation of the last couple of days. The first day we began by talking about NetSuite's Suite Success strategy, the idea of bringing industry expertise from a global accounting background into the application. The next day, we talked a little more narrowly about the services industry and how the services industry and the combination of labor and products is bringing together an offering that is compelling and differentiated. And today, we're focused on a specific industry, media and advertising. Now, media and advertising itself is considered a fairly broad set of technologies and industries. When you look at Netflix and you look at your Deutsch advertising agency, you wouldn't necessarily think of them as the same thing, but what brings them together is that content, that message that they're getting to their consumer, whether it be a viral video that you're watching via Facebook or something that you're binging on Netflix at night. I often talk about this with my wife, that there's an abundance of choice today. We'll often sit in our living room after we put the kids to bed and just be exhausted, but also want to be entertained. And I'll be on my phone looking at Amazon Video, trying to figure out what to watch, and she'll be on Netflix on her phone trying to figure out what to watch, and it'll take us 20 minutes to figure out what it's about. And eventually we'll get so tired we just push it to next week. We just have all these things that we want to watch, but we're too tired to watch it. And what's interesting about that is you think back when I was younger, we had HBO, and HBO was a premium product that we would pay through the nose for, maybe $30, $50 a month, back when that was a lot more money than it is today. But we would be excited when Star Wars was playing 3 nights in a row. We'd line up our schedules around that 8 p.m. start point. So today, you have both a attention span that's reduced from 2000 to today, where it's gone from 12 seconds to an average attention span of 9. It's good that people aren't checking their phones already. But my point being is that you have a hard time capturing that voice and capturing that choice. So we're going to help you focus on that for your business. So when we think about ways that we can help you, we have to recognize our own core capacities just like you have your core capacities. And when we think about Suite success, we think about a couple of things and really a continual cycle. I think you saw this puzzle piece metric earlier. The idea of building a solution, engaging, consuming, you being consumers, and then optimizing, and then doing it again. This idea of not being complacent, not being content with your current state of maturity as a business is core to the way we're looking at Suite success, and we're also looking at our business itself. I have a role here at NetSuite where I'm in charge of looking at how we can be better positioned for NetSuite in the marketplace of advertising, media, and publishing. It's a fascinating challenge. People often say to me, well, you came from industry, you know it so well, and I continually feel like a student. This morning I was reading about how Spotify had acquired a blockchain company in Brooklyn, and I thought to myself, how does that make sense? Blockchain has something to do with financials, Spotify has to do with consuming music. But what they were doing was actually using blockchain technology to draw in audience attribution to the Spotify platform so they could protect themselves from lawsuits about artists suing them for not compensating them for royalties. So an interesting confluence of technology with consumer consumption in music and obviously entertainment. So when we think about Suite success, this sort of same learning happens with us. We're looking at the way you're using the application, the way our 500 advertising, media, and advertising, media, and publishing clients are using the system today, and we're taking those learnings so that you don't have to learn each time. Now let's talk a little about the industry currents that are driving the strategies that we're employing here at NetSuite. We have a point of view, and we work with a lot of our global systems integrators, PwC, Deloitte Digital. Thank you for the sponsorship last night, Deloitte. That was a great event. I think everyone enjoyed it. When we think about these currents, these are the currents that are driving our thought process. So let's start with the first one, brand identity. So brand identity ties directly to what we talked about yesterday in the services keynote with Chris Lockwood, highlighting how a consumer, or a product design enables you to be irresistibly relevant to each individual. So we talked about a couple of things in the video that played earlier. Relentlessly relevant. There's a brand comment coming out of P&G talking about irresistibly attractive, I think. It's all these different words. But the point is trying to create a category of one so that you as a company and that you as a brand can be more appealing to the buyer who has a limited set of buying choices, and continue that relationship, whether it be your iPhone, your headphones, and be part of your identity. I think Chris talked about the idea of buying a $300 pair of sunglasses that is identified with who you are as a person versus buying a TV at $300. So that brand identity, the way we're doing it, the way we're connecting that to you, is we're enabling flawless engagement. So what we mean by flawless engagement is when you're talking about delivering the product to your company that is your client, how are you making sure those communication streams are not off? How are you making sure that the change orders don't happen multiple times? How are you making sure that your people, your talent, don't feel frustrated so you can retain that talent? And that brand identity is about driving higher value so you can drive higher margins. Now let's talk about that, talent. So talent is something we're going to delve into further when we get into HCM later. But talent is one of these amazing things that's hard to quantify. You can have a great, passionate person that may not be very effective. You can have a passionate person that is just amazingly off the charts in terms of contribution, even though their resume may not typically look like something that you'd see as a star. So how do you cultivate stars, not hire them? I've often talked about this with my sales colleagues, that my hiring percentage is about 50%. It's hard to tell if someone's going to be a star out of the gate sometimes. But how do you cultivate a culture of excellence and reward people and engage them? Now, NetSuite's HCM tool is directed towards that, and it's doing that by reinforcing HR within the context of delivery. So we, as a content and advertising industry, we're constantly delivering new ideas, new experiences to our consumers, but each of those things, if they're off just a little, if the punchline isn't delivered in the right way, if the video has an offensive thing in it, all of these things can really backfire. We've seen this with the Pepsi ad, with Jenner. These things just are terrible. And it's hard to recover because everything is amplified. You can't make a mistake in this room and then not recognize that it's going to be streamed across the country and people are going to know about it, and it's going to be an issue. So new technology is tied to that. So new technology is really a constant. And we had to put this in here because there's just no way to look at advertising and media without thinking about technology in every sense of the word. Technology and how we consume it, whether it's on your phone, on your iPad, or it's technology on how you measure the audience engagement, whether it's actually tracking your eyeballs across the screen or tracking where you are as you're walking by that Walgreens to buy that stick of deodorant. All those different technology choices are making us ready for a new experience for the consumer and new opportunities to capture value from them. The fourth one is audience and capabilities. So the audience, the same audience that walks by that Walgreens that has a choice of buying a Bic razor or a Gillette razor and choosing to buy a $12.99 product versus a $10.99 product, has to do with intent and how you can really capture that opportunity. So how are we doing that with you? We are helping you by integrating our APIs with audience tools. Oracle has Blue Kai and a whole data stack that can help inform our media clients and our agencies on how they can better craft their message to the right audiences. So the big opportunity with Oracle today is that we've done millions, if not tens of millions of dollars of investment into these larger data stacks so that you as the media clients can benefit. And we're investing in those both in individual partnerships and a broader view to the application. And lastly, growth and scale. This is again a given because as you identify your core capacity, you don't want to extend it into areas that are not relevant to your consumers or areas that are not relevant to your competitive advantage. So how do you, if you've dominated in New York City on delivering, let's call it market research, is what I thought about yesterday with one of our clients, how do you extend that and grow revenue without diluting your brand messaging? You may extend into Canada, into Toronto, Greater Toronto area. You may extend into the UK. But how do you do that without a step cost? We talk about step costs where, well, setting up a shop in Canada, setting up a shop in the UK is going to dramatically increase your costs. So the terrific thing about the way scale and growth happens with NetSuite is it's incremental. You're delivering growth at a level that's commensurate with the opportunity. So you can experiment and fail fast and reinvest in different areas that are appropriately profitable. So the notion of NetSuite is that we're able to provide an agile solution that can allow you to experiment in the UK, experiment in Canada, and then reinvest where there's appropriate margin. So let's talk about the next things that we're investing in the product. So all of these different currents are driving three specific strategies. We talked about strategy yesterday with Chris Lockwood. So the first strategy is Suite Success. If you haven't figured that one out, we haven't been paying attention. Project and revenue excellence. So when we think about delivering a advertising and media delivery mechanism, we're talking about producing commercials like Vice Media. We're talking about creating ad experiences. We're creating brand experiences like Profit. All of these different experiences take a lot of labor and having an insight as to where to course correct and optimize that labor delivery is hugely important. So we're investing in deep project accounting. We have a surge in deep project accounting that we'll talk to in a minute. And lastly, people management. That idea of optimizing your talent and making sure they're engaged and passionate in the way you're delivering it. So tied to that first investment, I'd like to invite my colleague, Katrina Horton, Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives at Oracle NetSuite, to talk more in depth about how we're delving into Suite success and how we're gathering data. Thank you, Katrina.
Morning, everyone. So, as Chris said, I'm here to talk a little bit about the first part of what we're investing in, and that's Suite success. So I've been with NetSuite for a while now, but I've been working on Suite success since the very beginning. And when I look at Suite success, when we really came to try to figure out what we were going to do, what this even meant, we had to start with the end in mind. What were we really trying to achieve out of this? And if we're trying to achieve happy customers and customers that have a solution based on leading practices, we realized that we couldn't start at the end unless we started at the beginning with building out a product that had those leading practices built in, and then looking at our product, building out leading practices that utilized our product and the flexibility of our platform. So what we did was that we engaged with our customers, our partners. We went to them industry by industry and talked about what their business challenges were. And we built these industry-specific leading practices that we can utilize for the rest of our customers as well. And then after we build the leading practices, we think about how our customers are going to be able to consume that. And that's the Stairway approach. And I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, but we're going to go over that in just a moment here. But making sure that we're not asking you to just do that big bang approach, but really thinking about more of an intelligent phased implementation approach, and being able to recognize a return on your investment a lot sooner in that staged approach. And then also looking at how we optimize. Leading practices are not stale. So at one point, your leading practices might be one thing today, but then once the product changes or regulations changed or anything like that, then we need to optimize and keep building that in so we keep you competitive. And that's what we've done with Suite success. So let me move on to just talking specifically about Suite success for advertising agencies. What I'll say is in AMP, we actually have two distinct practices. One for agencies and one for media and publishing. But today what we're going to do is concentrate specifically on agencies. For agencies, what we're really thinking is that agencies really concentrate on projects and resources and the complexities about, surrounding that. And what we've done is we've built a solution that addresses those complexities. When we look at our remediate stage, what we've done is we've looked at, we'll look at who your people are and what your revenues, your expenses, your outcomes, and your activities are. And we've built specific roles that mitigate risk, audit risk, business risk, and then also allow you to look at how you should run your business. What are the KPIs that should be used, and how you can be as competitive as possible. And that's what we do here in the remediate stage. But that's just to get you up and going and making sure that you have that part to get to. And the whole, if you've heard the 0 to cloud in 100 days or less, that's really centered around this remediate stage. But we didn't stop there, right? Because we know that that's not all you need to do. Yes, I need to get up and going. I need to understand where I am and start that business. But I also want to get to the point of innovating and eventually being the visionary here. So building in those specific things in each step of the stairway, it's how we partner with you and make sure that you're going to be successful as you move forward with NetSuite on our platform. So I'll go ahead and bring Chris back up here so he can really talk about the other solutions that we're investing in for your agency, for your vertical. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. So this is an exciting thing because what we're doing is we're taking Katrina and Reg Singh's expertise in deploying Suite Success, and we're turning it against the agency vertical. And let's talk in more specifics about what we're doing and how this Stairway is driving product investment. So there are 3 things that we're doing based on that Stairway. And again, we're starting with remediate, moving through that phase so that as companies evolve in their maturity, we can accommodate them each step along the way. So 3 core points are SRP, deep project accounting and management, and revenue recognition. And when these elements are tied against the remediate phase and tied against the improvement phase, they are providing significant value to our customers. And a couple of the customers that we wanted to talk to in this regard are some of them that are in the room here: Profit, Greenberg, and Bankrate. Finn, unfortunately, had an issue that they're not able to join us today, but they're another great example. And Vice Media, who is both a publisher as well as an agency. And that's why I wanted to highlight them. And when these individuals and these companies have talked to us and what we've learned in the past, if we could go back a slide. Thank you. Okay, so these are the areas that are really table stakes. And they're not just table stakes because these are what people do every day. It's the idea that these are the elements that create the data that drives decisions. So whether it be project accounting, the elements that flow into project accounting like timesheets and WIP reporting, and then how do we govern this? How do you create exceptions and other reports that make sure that you can scale your business and manage by exception versus manage by detail? And these investments are driven by what we've learned from our customers and how we've approached the Suite Success strategy. So let me talk to them in more detail. So the first way we start is we start with a dashboard. We start with how are your executives, how are your executive personas managing the business? What are the inflection points? What are the key metrics that drive decisions, whether it be to divest, invest in additional capabilities, all through a singular view, because as we know, executives are often visually based. We don't want to give them spreadsheets, ideally, we want to give them visuals. And there are a couple things here I'll point out, and we'll drive into more detail. Client profitability, so holistic client profitability, project variance reporting, job burn, outstanding WIP, top 5 projects, and a data feed that highlights what's happening on a day-to-day basis with milestones, et cetera. So if we drill into the project variance report, this one looks at each level of effort and how much it's cost, and then looks at your expenses broken out by area. And in this case, we're looking at it in a singular currency, in a particular view, in a particular month. What it's showing in detail is you're able to understand what your burn is, what you initially began with, how much you've billed, and then ultimately where you're going to end up. Whether the out-of-pockets have hit you hard or whether your labor has hit you hard, you can understand what you've committed to from a client perspective and what's driving overages and driving conversations, so you can have that continual conversation with your client about whether there's a need for a change order or another conversation. And this is just an so let me talk about some of the things that went into this. So for example, we've developed a customized WIP for advertising agencies. We've also looked at customized calculations for profitability that enable you to, with the new profitability report that Evan pointed out, segment what goes into the numerator and denominator. So a great case in point, I was talking to one of our CFOs at a large holding company in New York. I'm sure you can guess one of the 4 that are there. But he was discussing client margin and agency compensation. And he was simply explaining that the client was happy to pay him 20 points as long as that 20 points didn't include 401k costs, medical costs, and all the other things that really go into overhead. So it was a gamesmanship around making sure that that cost-plus model that he was highlighting to the client created just the right margin, but also compensated for the notion that he was going to have to pay rent, he was going to have to pay benefits, and all the other elements that are reality. So having that conversation intelligently and being able to look at profitability, incorporating rent, incorporating 401k, incorporating fringe, and then be able to make those decisions independent of a singular profitability report. And that's something that we find is hugely valuable, because as you're looking at labor margin, both for prospective customers as well as currently engaged customers, you have to look at them differently and concurrently. So with that, I wanted to bring up a case in point, Jeannie Vance from Profit Brands, to talk about how that's created a different culture at Profit.
So it takes a second.
Yeah, sure. Jeannie's another one of our walking wounded, having had a knee surgery recently, so thank you for making the trip out.
No problem.
This is exciting to have you here. So can you share with the audience a little about Profit Brands and how you built the company out and what your core capabilities are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the CIO for Profit. We are a 400-person consulting company. We drive client growth through creating very relevant brands and a lot of disruptive type of thinking, as well as amazing customer experiences for our clients. And we do that all with a thread. People talk about being digital. We show up digitally. I mean, we do it through technology. So for example, and this is just something to think about, is that we don't show up to a pitch with a PowerPoint. We show up with a digital suitcase that says, now our client is completely interactive from day one from a digital perspective.
That's fantastic. It's exciting. She actually shared with me some of her intranet and showed me some of the clients. It's amazing to see the types of brands that Profit's working with today. So can you share with me where you were a couple of years ago? You were working with these Fortune 10 brands. Can you share one or two? And how did that technology front match with your actual back end? What were the silos of information that you were dealing with before NetSuite came into play?
So I'll say that we have some of the most amazingly creative people that I've ever worked with in my 20-plus year career. That number keeps going up, so not just a plus. We show up very, leading edge kind of thing, and it separates us from our competitors. However, on the back end, we were dealing with disparate systems for, time and expense reporting, our financial system. We have a very old financial system. And we had grown organically, but also through acquisition. And we were just getting to a point now that we needed to have a global view into all of our business, basically, from a financial perspective, so that we could make agile business decisions. So a lot of our projects are fixed bid, and we needed to be able to manage that literally, almost near time. So do you want me to just go on into how we got to NetSuite?
Sure, no, that'd be interesting. I'd like to hear about the journey.
So, I'm sorry, does someone have a question? No? So we vetted out 4 of the top ERP systems, and we did that over probably a 3 or 4 month period of time, and we ended up choosing NetSuite for a couple reasons. One is that what we were looking for was a partner, not a vendor. And I will say that our account rep was amazing, and he absolutely made us feel like we were a partner and not a number that we felt like we would be with another one of the competitors. The second piece is that NetSuite really, fed into our global business, because we have people all over the world. And we don't staff a project regionally, we will staff it globally. So if we're doing a project, for example, for Electrolux, we will take the best people wherever they are in the world and put them on that project. So we're dealing with multi-currency and all kinds of different revenue recognition and that type of thing. And that was a big differentiator too.
No, that's fantastic. I think one of the things that ties directly to that was the idea that while you're hiring these people in Stockholm or hiring them in Amsterdam or bringing them back and moving them around, you had this culture of amazing creativity and high level of expertise. Mm-hmm. But you explained to me something in the last couple of days as we were talking through this, that while your culture had this excellent level of delivery and this accountability that you pushed down through the organization mm-hmm. to the middle management, there was a bit of a conflict, because you had these middle managers that were driven to have these intelligent conversations, but they were to a certain degree hamstrung by the fact that finance was the gateway to their project profitability,
Correct.
Their staffing. So can you talk to us a little about how your culture's changed in the last 18 months deploying a project accounting, incorporated solution that enables your people to be self-service?
So, we have engagement managers, senior engagement managers that support our projects, and, they have to, because we do a lot of fixed bid work, they have to make sure that our burn rate and our, is actually well within what our parameters are. So with our old system, and this was another reason we actually chose to move forward with something that provided us a global view, is that being able to look at those financials almost near time. The engagement manager is able to look and go, okay, what's our spend? What are we doing? They can make changes literally on the fly to, for example, travel or who's staffed and things like that. Where before, by the time that they would get reporting on it, it was too late. We would either make money or lose money, and there was no insight into that project piece and resourcing and the financials of it.
That's fantastic. So on the insight, on that margin item, I wanted to highlight something else that you gave to me the other day, was the notion of now that you have this insight into margin and incremental margin of different capabilities, you shared with me how you as a CIO are bringing value to some of the new pitches as far as how those pitches are executed and how that margin can be additive or accretive to the bottom line in brand activations and mobile design. So can you share with the audience how you've extended personally the capabilities of Profit just by having that data-based argument behind you?
Sure. So we, and I know the example you're talking about, I can't actually mention the client, but some of the things that we're doing now is, instead of, because we do a lot of strategy work, but we would do some activation and delivery work, but now we're very much on the side of, hey, we're not leaving that money on the table. We're actually doing the delivery and activation piece, mainly because our clients begged us to do it because they're so engaged with us. And again, we're a relationship company. That's what we do. And they would say, we love your plan, but we want you guys to execute it now. So right now, one of the things, there's multiple, and I can't even remember which one I gave you, but I'll give you an example of one where we created 3 small microsites for a large telecommunications company, and they wanted it for an internal event about training their people on customer experience. So that we had the event, and we basically shut down the 3 sites, and then they said, hey, can you put those 3 sites back up because we want to continue to use them, and basically allowing us to do follow-on work with our client that was very low margin for us, low cost for us, but extremely high margin. And that, and that continued on for several months where we hosted these sites for them. They did training, and it created an incredible margin for us from being able to deliver that.
That's huge, and I think none of that would have happened without you being able to demonstrate what that margin looked like on the previous projects that you'd done. So the ability for you
Correct.
To go back and look at that data and make that case internally was really powerful to me. So the last question I had for you was, as you look ahead, you've deployed NetSuite Financials globally, you've deployed our project and resource management globally. What's next for Profit in terms of deriving more value from the extended NetSuite suite, whether it be a partner or another capability?
So our next big thing is CRM and how we tie that into all of our financials. So everything about the CRM process, from lead generation to what partners of ours bring additional leads, that type of thing, and actually measuring all of that. And we're starting that project right now. We're actually in the middle of starting to vet out all the players, but of course NetSuite will be someone we look at too.
Early leader.
So that's actually huge. We've, just generally speaking, we've used a number of your partners too, like Adaptive, we've actually used them. So, and that's provided us a major insight into our budgeting and forecasting process too.
No, it's exciting. It's exciting to see the value that you're getting today and the value that prospectively you can get in the coming months.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's exciting to have you here, and I hope everything continues to go swimmingly well.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
So next we're going to pivot from agency and services delivery to media deployment and media engagement with another customer interview with Steve Barnhart from Bankrate. Please join me in welcoming Steve to the stage. Can we move back a slide? That's not Steve's name. No. Welcome, Steve. There we have it. That's correct. So thank you, Steve, for joining us. I think you flew in yesterday from New York.
Yeah, late last night, yes.
I can associate with that. So coming to us from Bankrate, can you share a little background with the audience about who Bankrate is, where you've come from as a company? You have a relatively long time frame, but in the recent years, you've really evolved as a company.
Sure. Bankrate started many years ago as really a B2B publication back when banks were, well, I'm not sure they're regulated more than they are today, or they were regulated differently, and they had a hard time gathering interest rate information to know where their competitors were. So Bankrate aggregated that information and supplied it to them. Over time, banking changed and the internet evolved, and it became a consumer offering online. So Bankrate became one of the leading sources of mortgage rate information or deposit rate information online. And now we've added credit cards via creditcards.com and senior care versus caring.com. So we have changed quite a bit over the years.
Oh, that's exciting. So one of the things that we talked about in our prep was the notion of what's driven your expansion, because you've gone to credit cards, you've gone to caring.com, but the central driver behind that is really your end user, the consumer. Right. Can you share with us your perspective on how you engage the consumer and what your ultimate vision for the consumer is?
Sure. As we look at how we focus our attention, we're really trying to help our consumers maximize their money, and that may be getting refinancing their mortgage at an attractive rate. That could be back last fall, we were very involved with the Chase Sapphire Reserve credit card launch, maybe helping a consumer find the right credit card for them. It can be a very personal decision, like helping find the right senior care for a loved one. But we provide great content for them, and then we're able to connect them with providers that can solve that issue for them.
No, I love it. It reminds me of Tesla's objective as being a climate change advocate versus a car manufacturer, that you're really doing something for the end consumer versus actually a credit card company or a elder care facility. Right. That's exciting. So let's move into corp. You are a CFO, but you're also head of corp dev at Bankrate. You've been a very acquisitive company, and when you moved from SAP to NetSuite, can you talk a little about the KPIs that you've been using to drive some of the acquisitions that you've made in the last few years?
Sure, and I would say it's less that the KPIs themselves have changed than that is our accessibility to those KPIs, right? Okay. So we, oddly enough, when I joined the company, it's almost a statistical anomaly, managed to have every business they've acquired on a different financial system or a different version of that financial system. So there's absolutely no leverage.
Sounds fun.
Across, yeah, it was beautiful. A lot of upside opportunity. So information was very much an island, and it was very difficult to compare across businesses. It was very difficult to drive efficiencies in the finance organization. It was very difficult from the top to see down and get a good forecast roll-up and view. So as we acquire things, we're able to very quickly integrate them, bring them onto a standardized system, and also make sure the metrics that they're reporting are actually calculated the same way as the metrics we're traditionally looking at. Yep. and do a much better job of quickly getting the information we need to make business decisions.
That's right. That makes a lot of sense to us. And having it all consolidated, I think the other thing you shared with me is that having those efficiencies as a scale, managing a number of digital properties gives you a competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we acquired a number of sites that have great information and good traffic, but the interest in a specific site can wax or wane over time. Deposits are, for example, much less interesting when the interest rates are about this large. So you want to operate these sites very efficiently, and with a consolidated back end, we're able to, in our most recent acquisition, really remove all of the finance costs from that business and leverage existing resources to do the work. So it gives us a much lower cost structure.
That's exciting. So you can become more acquisitive with a lower cost and drive accretive margin without the incremental costs of that financial team and the financial cost of measuring those metrics.
Right.
So let's talk about one of those acquisitions in detail. We were happy enough to and fortunate enough to host one of your activations on the floor the last couple of days, the Points Guy.
Right.
Can you talk to us about the Points Guy? An interesting character, interesting capability. Right. Talk to us about how that came into the Bankrate family and how that's extended your capabilities and and the nature of that business?
Yeah, I know. I love talking about the points guy. So Brian Kelly is the points guy, and he was actually here earlier this week.
He was
down,
on Monday.
He was down there. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see him, but Brian's much taller than I am, much more attractive than I am, has much better personality than I am. But he was traveling a lot for work. He started a blog on aggregating points and how one can maximize that, and developed interest, eventually quit his job to do it full time, which he said his mother cried. You're almost ready to be a director. You could be a vice president. But he was building the business, and we were a partner with him because we work with sites and we give them the ability to monetize their traffic via credit cards. And what we saw was that Brian really had really quality content and a great set of consumers, very good consumer interest. What we didn't see at the time, and what's really developed since then, is as the social aspect of operating online has grown, Brian's ability to connect in the social area is sort of off the charts. So you can imagine taking a site looking at mortgages or things, trying to take that into the social environment and make that interesting to people. It can be a little challenging, but Brian, with his personality and with the topic of travel and aggregating points, he's able to bring that to life, and he's really helped us understand better how we can connect with consumers in the social arena and make that an interesting experience for them.
That's terrific. I take it he has a few more Instagram followers than you do?
Yes, an infinite number.
Infinite number. Well, that's exciting. I love the story because it's something that I traditionally wouldn't have thought of a digital publisher like Bankrate having a brand activation like the Points Guy, and just the revenue stream is fairly significant to the bottom line as a publicly traded company. It's exciting to see. Mm-hmm. So when you think about your mission of helping the consumer and helping them save money in various areas, whether it be elder care, their credit cards, their travel choices, and even their individual financial choices, can you talk to us a little about some of the directions that you're going in the future to help inform consumers and potential ideas that you guys have as a company, barring, of course, the idea that we'd, as a publicly traded company, betray any of your competitive advantages, but share what you can.
No, nor will I talk about our earnings that we're going to release next week. So we'll leave all that to the side. But so historically, we've done a really good job of providing content for consumers that they find generally via search engine, and then a repeat on our sites, and then, as I said, connect them with providers. What we see as opportunities are to make that process much more efficient. So developing tools like one we have called Card Match, where instead of a consumer coming and digesting information and then choosing a card and going down that path and potentially not getting approved, if we can give them a tool they can use that helps them understand with their credit score and kind of their credit history what they can get approved for, is a much better experience if we can raise that approval rate. Obviously, we're not going to change the bank's decision at the end, but we can help steer that consumer toward the right card for them. And that gives the consumer and actually the bank, people hate banks, but banks don't really like to turn people down. It gives everyone a better experience.
That's fantastic. I also love the example where you were talking about if I was at the gas station pump and choosing in my wallet between the American Express and the Visa, the idea that potentially you could help me choose which card I'd get the bigger bang for that particular purchase.
Well, not potentially. We can actually do that for you. So
I don't believe you.
We've got a Wallaby app, and you can go to bankrate.com and you can look for the app. But we want to help the consumer throughout their financial journey. So once you get the right card, you still have decisions to make in terms of when you use one card versus another. And so Wallaby, literally, if you're checking out at Macy's, it will recommend to you, use your Discover card because you'll get triple points. They have a promotion this week. Or at another venue, it might say to use your Amex card because they've got a better promotional option going on. So we can solve that issue for you today.
Okay, I can see something about the Suite Store next year. So we can measure points on the Suite Store downstairs. You haven't seen this yet flying in last night, but we actually have a consumer-facing store where you can buy a hoodie. I'll show you later.
All right.
We'll do some rebates there. But thank you. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
We're just, I say my role as CFO, I think, is to help the company have forward-looking visibility into where we're going and making sure we build an organization that's flexible and lean, but flexible and able to get there. And so we can adapt in this rapidly changing environment we work in.
That's exciting. Well, it's exciting to see you guys thriving as a publicly traded company with all the constraints of that reporting, but also in a rapidly changing digital environment. Congratulations on that. So,
thank you.
Thank you for coming. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Steve, and advance the slide to our next topic. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, VP of HCM Products, Joseph Fung, joining us from Waterloo to talk to how NetSuite's investment in HCM is impacting the advertising, media, and publishing world. Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Good to see you.
Thank you. So, you've had the chance to hear from a number of us. On Tuesday from Jim about the launch of Suite People. I had the chance yesterday to give you a bit of a preview of Suite People. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about how we're bringing that to individual industries. Now, this is a brand new product, and right from the get-go, we recognize that agencies and consultancies were going to be, a key target audience for the product. And part of the reason was in our early conversations with customers, we heard some very consistent themes from agencies and companies in the advertising, media, all of these very public-facing and consumer-grade industries. We heard comments like there's a lot of disruption and a lot of chaos. So we have a lot of changes in our workforce, hiring, seasonal work, talent that's used on a contract basis, acquisitions. So a lot of new talent and a lot of changes to the workforce. We heard a lot of comments about the types of work that people were doing, new roles that never existed, social media managers, influencers. It's really hard to run a robust HR organization when you're working on shifting sands. And so when we designed Suite People, we did a couple of things. First off, we really thought about Suite success, the idea of figuring out what your remediation is and implementing a great solution, not trying to boil the ocean all at once, and then growing with the company. And so we designed our features and we built out Suite People knowing that we were going to advance over time and help our customers grow. And so we have a number of features, a number of functions that roll out as an organization hits new levels of maturity. The second thing that we thought of were what were the pain points that we can uniquely solve for agencies and service-based organizations. And we recognized a lot of them. Close ties into SRP, as we showed you during the demo yesterday. High quality, very engaging experiences to bring in strong relationships with talent, especially in companies where you have a younger or perhaps more millennial-oriented audience. And so we've had a really good time tailor crafting a solution designed for agencies and advertising companies and something that will scale. I love talking about this. This is a lot of fun, but I think it's going to be better if we can hear a little bit from one of our customers. And so we're fortunate enough today to have one of our beta customers joining us. So I'd really like to invite Lisa Marie Hadley from Greenberg to come up and share a little bit of her story. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi.
So, we've had the opportunity to work together, and I've been fortunate enough to get to know you and the company a bit. Could you help our audience understand a little bit more about Greenberg?
Sure. So Greenberg is a research consultancy based in the Bay Area. We work with worldwide companies. We have focus on qualitative research, quantitative research, and design to help companies understand what customers' needs and their motivations.
So you help your customers better understand their customers.
Right.
Nice. And you're the controller at Greenberg. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and your responsibilities?
Sure. So I'm the financial controller at Greenberg, and for the last 3 years, I've been the NetSuite administrator. So when we made the decision to move to NetSuite, it was sort of led by the finance team at that point.
Okay. So you've been a customer of NetSuite for 3 years.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, the purchase and the rollout?
Sure. So about 5 years ago, it became obvious that we had outgrown our finance system. We were in a combination of Excel and QuickBooks. We were rapidly growing in our industry, and we had to make some decisions on what was the next thing for us. Our first decision was to try to implement SAP, Business by Design.
I'm sorry.
Yes. After about 2 months of recovery after that implementation, we engaged with NetSuite in the beginning around 2014, and we went live that year.
Fantastic. Now, I remember you telling me that you went live with financials. You began a rollout of SRP, but actually put that on hold while you rolled out Suite People. Can you tell us a little bit around that transition and the thinking behind it?
Yes. So we knew that the next phase of our implementation after financials was going to be SRP. Our focus was going to be resource allocation. This was the point where we first brought a team outside of finance into the NetSuite world, really, within Greenberg. We had our project management team take the lead on resource allocation, a dedicated team focused on allocating the resources, looking at the implementation, and we got about halfway through when we realized you cannot have resource allocation without integrated timesheets and integrated time-off management. So at that time, we reached out to our NetSuite account manager and said, what do we do? How can you help us? We implemented time tracking within NetSuite, and we looked for a time-off management system. There was nothing native in NetSuite at that time, so we implemented TribeHR. TribeHR is a great time-off management system. It does not communicate that well with the resource allocation grid, and that implementation was still on hold until exactly a year ago at SuiteWorld last year.
It was a good time. I'm glad that we were achieved. So when you rolled out Suite People, you've had the chance to do finance, you folded in your project management group, now you're folding in the HR organization. Can you tell us a little bit, what was this like bringing the HR organization into kind of what was the realm of finance?
Well, what happened at SuiteWorld last year was we met with the development team for HCM, and we were introduced to the idea of this amazing employee center that could engage our employees with an org chart, with access to the time off management, looking at the accruals and that sort of thing. And we were, at that point, invited to join the beta team. So I ran back to work, and I asked my director of whole human resources if she would take the lead on implementing this HCM and be participant in the beta test. And we spent 3 months as part of that, an incredible experience being part of that. But that was really the first time we were pulling in now HR. So we'd gone from finance, we brought in project management, and now HR was coming into sort of the NetSuite fold.
So now you've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen now. We've got finance, project, HR. What's been the impact for your workforce, for the rest of your employees, now having all these tools together?
We're still really in the development part of it. It's really, I feel the shift happening. Sort of NetSuite had that sort of curse word attached to it of it being a finance tool. It's a finance tool. Where we brought in the project management team and started engaging with that group of people as they were developing projects and getting project budgets, and we're really looking forward to doing the resource allocation and getting that part implemented to bring that group more fully into NetSuite World to get better data and better analytics out of that. But when we brought HR or Suite People in, the shift was immediate. It was really present with every employee. Every employee engages with NetSuite through that employee center. No matter if you're a CFO or a bookkeeper, you are an employee the whole time. And when you engage with NetSuite as an employee, with this beautiful layout, there's org charts with photographs, and you see the connectivity between you as, connectivity between you as a person and the people you report to, or new hires coming in, and on the first day, having a really dynamic org chart that they can sit at their brand new desk and look and see the photograph of the person they just met in the coffee room and realize that's the VP of strategy. It's such a handy tool. It's so engaging, and it gets people involved in NetSuite right from the get-go with a very positive experience. Plus, HR, it's time off, it's a benefit. So the first thing we're telling you is you're an employee, and here you have 2 weeks off in the next 3 months. Enjoy.
Nice. I like the way you put it in our conversation, and I think we actually grabbed the text because the way you put it around transitioning NetSuite from being a finance tool to a Greenberg tool is exactly what we're trying to help realize. And we're so grateful that you participate in the beta because this type of feedback is incredibly useful. But it would be great. Could you share with the room what was it like participating in a beta program with a brand new product?
Grueling, but exciting. It was really exciting. Like I said, I came here last year, so this has been an exact 1-year cycle for me. Met a team of very enthusiastic people. It was so exciting to see the people who are creating NetSuite, this tool that is so valuable for my job, had such dedication and interest in the results that I wanted. So we started the beta program. Me and my director of whole human resources were taking the lead together. And we were a few weeks into it and realized that something that's very important to me and to Greenberg is that when someone has requested a time off, we need a time off calendar. Our company operates mostly in Google, and so we said, if I have approved time off, we need to share it company-wide in some form of calendar. And that wasn't part of the process right now. That wasn't part of the HCM. That was a rollout that they knew it had to happen, but it was going to happen later. We said, thank you very much. We are not able to participate in your beta program because we need this, and we can't roll this program out to our people without having this. Next thing I know, there's 25 people on a phone call. Next day, we have a calendar. We had a calendar, we said, oh, okay, we're back in. That happened so many times during the process. The responsivity, the dedication to what we need, they listened to us. They listened to us, and I feel like I can't emphasize that, I'm one of you guys, and they listen. Colors changed, fonts changed, the emphasis of how big this is versus real estate wasted on things that I didn't think was important, that we didn't think were important, that other people participating. We often heard that, yes, we're hearing that from everyone. We'd make a comment like, this does not work. Yes, we hear that from everyone. 2 weeks later, it's gone, and the process is completely streamlined and improved.
And the calendar issue is fixed now, right?
The calendar, our calendar is now your calendar.
and that's a great point. I mean, the feedback is so useful, and it's great to be able to share that specific feature and that specific item is now part of the standard offering. So thanks again so much for all the help.
You're very welcome.
Now, if you could share kind of one closing thought, the whole vision of this conference is that next starts now. So, we'd love to hear, where do you see the operations of Greenberg, your role, where do you see that moving in the future?
So, as I said, our next vision was always that full implementation of SRP. Resource allocation was put on hold pending the HCM. HCM has now been live for 3-4 weeks. It's going over really well. I know that when I return on Monday, I'm meeting with my project management team because we're kicking off the resource allocation, because now we have that time off management communicating directly to time tracking and to the resource allocation grid like we needed. So we're starting that. We're also doing an implementation with one of your, with Adaptive.
Great.
So we're doing a lot of analytics. Our company is just getting the data in there now, and we need to look at it different ways. We're starting to slice and dice differently, and we're using Adaptive to look at financials that way.
It sounds like you have a lot of work ahead of you. I'm glad that we're able to help and that things are moving forward.
Thank you. I wanted to mention too that our HR department, because I think Suite People is really important. It's been a terrific way for our team to engage with NetSuite, and that I know my director is also talking about impacting recruiting, possibly bringing recruiting in with one of your partners, Job Fight.
Fantastic.
So I think having more information in that one source and having everybody using a similar tool, understanding it, is really going to help us collaborate as a team.
That's great. And thank you so much again for participating in the beta and for joining us today to share your story.
You're very welcome.
Thanks so much, Lisa Marie. And we're getting kind of close to the end of the time, so rather than keeping you any longer, I'm going to hand things back over to Chris to kind of bring it home.
Thank you, Joseph. There you go. Great story. It's exciting to see how NetSuite is really positioned as the platform for next for this specific industry and how we're adding immediate value here. I will tell you that what's interesting about where we are as an inflection point with NetSuite in general and Oracle is we are at the edge of a tremendous investment with Oracle's plowing tons of resources into the development team, tons of resources specifically into this vertical. So when we think about NetSuite as a platform for next, it's an exciting time to see all of these currents being influential to how NetSuite is pouring that money into the application, whether it be pouring it into HCM, pouring it into project management, pouring it into project accounting. All of these different elements are coming together to enhance the network effect of NetSuite for your businesses. It's an exciting time for me because we're actually launching the strategic initiative for agencies. And what that means is we'll be delving further into the way you do your business, further into the way you engage with your people and deliver product. So with Suite success, the deeper investment in project accounting and revenue recognition and people management in HCM, we're going to truly drive more industry change. So in summary, pulling in a slide that we had in Evan's keynote, Suite Cloud plus Suite success, so our technology plus our strategy to apply that technology. The extended whole offer, so not just NetSuite's platform, but our partnerships, whether it be rights and royalties on the front end, accounting, planning on the back end, is tying together a broader offering to reinforce value. And lastly, leading practices that enable you to get better value faster and in the center of the application so that you'll drive more value and benefit from all the investment we're driving to the product. So with that, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for coming to NetSuite's SuiteWorld, and we hope to see you next year as well. Thanks.